Hey, tonight you're not in your bed. You're beneath a flat stone roof, wrapped in stiff linen, in a mud brick home beside the Nile. It's hot. Not the kind that makes you sweat, the kind that clings. The air smells of burnt oil, crushed grain, and old prayers. Outside, someone is crying, and no one asks why. You think ancient Egypt was all gold. Gods and grand queens try being 12, married off, blamed when your baby doesn't cry. Try grinding barley before dawn, bleeding in silence, and obeying even quieter. Your sandals are too small, your voice even smaller. And still, by the end of this journey, you'll understand why some women whispered to statues when no one else would listen. What time is it, where you are? I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. And if you enjoy these quiet descents into forgotten lives, maybe tap subscribe. It means more than you know. Now dim the lights. Let your body sink into the mattress. Let the silence hold you. You're not a goddess, you're a girl. In history. And history doesn't ask what you want. You wake to the sound of stone stretching. The ceiling above you flat, dusty, low cracks, faintly as the heat returns to its bones. The room is darker than it should be. Mud brick walls drink in the morning light and give nothing back. Your linen wrap is stiff with yesterday's sweat, clinging where it should comfort. The mattress is no mattress, just reeds, flattened, itchy, smelling faintly of goat and old smoke. There are no windows in this room, only two thin slits too high to see through, too narrow for air. The air is still, heavy, and dry in the way that makes your lips peel before you speak. Outside, someone coughs. Then chants begin, low, slow, rhythmic. It's your father. His voice is rougher now. Morning prayers to Sobek, for protection, for water, for strength. You wonder what Sobek would think if he saw how tired your father looks. The floor is cracked earth. You know each line by memory, the way it curves around the cooking pit, the way it dips near the threshold. The baby, your cousin's youngest, cries in short, dry bursts, no tears left in him. He's thirsty again, but the water's being saved for the men. There are no doors in your home, just hanging cloth, no locks, no privacy. You share this space with your mother, your cousin, your aunt, and two others who rotate through like wandering ghosts. You do not remember the last time you changed clothes without turning to face the wall. And still, no one complains, because what's there to compare it to? This is home. And this morning, like every morning, you press your palm to the cracked floor beside you and whisper a small secret wish that something will change. But not too loudly, because sometimes the gods are listening. You sit on your heels near the fire pit. The smoke is already rising not from wood, but from dried dung and straw crackling in uneven heat. Your aunt squats beside a flat stone slab, slapping dough between her hands, shaping it into small puff discs. There's no conversation, just the quiet rhythm of labor. The smell of smoke seeps into everything, your hair, your fingers, even the linen of your tunic that you haven't changed in 3 days. Someone coughs, the baby again. No one turns. A lizard skitters across the far wall and disappears beneath a basket of onions. Your stomach growls, but you keep your hands on your knees. Because this is how it goes. The men eat first, then the boys. Then, what's left you? The bread is plain, flat, sometimes hollow in the middle if the heat caught it right, sometimes blackened, sometimes undercooked. If you're lucky, there's a small bowl of dried fish, hard salty, sharp if you bite wrong. If you're even luckier, someone forgot to salt them too much. But today, luck isn't yours. You watch as your older brother takes 2 pieces of bread, inspects both, and tosses the more burnt one aside. It lands near your feet. You glance up just for a second, then reach for it. Too soon. A sharp smack lands on the back of your hand, not enough to bruise, just enough to shame. After your brother, your aunt mutters, as if your hunger is a choice. As if your fingers don't shake from waiting. You pull your hand back, wait, and by the time it's your turn, the bread is cold. The edge is missing. You eat it anyway, chewing slow as ash flakes from the air settle into the folds of your skirt. You say nothing, because no one else does, and that silence is what fills you more than the food. Your mother's fingers weave through your hair like reeds in river water. Not gentle, not harsh, just practiced, efficient. She doesn't hum. She never hums anymore. Don't cut anything today, she says, pulling tighter near your scalp. It's a bad day. Seth walks the sky backwards. You nod, though you don't know what it means. You've heard her say it before, when the chickens laid too few eggs, when the river dropped, when a neighbor miscarried. There's a small leather string around your waist, tied so many times, it's almost part of your skin now. Hanging from it is a tiny clay bead shaped like an open eye. It protects your womb, she once told you. You asked what a womb was. She didn't answer. Just said, don't touch it, don't ever let a man see it, and don't ever ask that again. So you stopped asking. About the string, about the gods, about the things they say live inside you. Once you stared too long at a traveling merchant. His eyes were green like the Nile in flood season. Later that night, your mother burned incense and washed your face with bitter herbs. If you look too long into strange eyes, she said Horus will make you blind. And the way she said it, you believed her. You believe a lot of things now. That your body has secret doors. That gods live in your blood. That silence keeps demons asleep. You've seen women wear necklaces of carved wood shaped like frogs' fertility charms. You've seen others press their forehead to temple steps and whisper things too quiet for you to hear. But no one ever tells you why. Why frogs? Why smoke? Why you must walk backwards into a room if your right foot itches. They just say, because it's sacred. And in this world, sacred means this: don't touch. Don't ask. Don't think. The wind feels different today. Not stronger, not cooler. Just off. It scrapes sideways through the cracks in the wall, carrying something more than dust. Your cousin says it's just a change in season. Your aunt stops pounding grain mid-stroke. Your mother, she watches the sky like it might speak. Word came from Memphis 2 days ago. Someone brought it with a bundle of reeds and a twisted ankle. They're dying, she whispered. But no one says how. No names, no numbers. Just a look, the kind adults give each other when children are too near. That look tells you more than words ever could. It tells you, be afraid. Yesterday, a girl from the next village fainted. She hasn't bled in 3 moons. Some say she's been taken by a spirit. Others say her blood has reversed direction, crawling back inside to feed the thing growing there. She hasn't been seen since the priest came. Tonight, that same priest will visit your home. Not for a funeral, not for a blessing. Just to check. That's all they say. You helped your mother sweep the floor 3 times. She changed the family amulet from one hook to another. You boiled water, then poured it out again. And still, nothing feels clean. Not enough. You lie on your mat and try to slow your breathing. But your heart pounds too loud. Thud, thud, thud. You whisper the names of the gods you remember. Isis, Hathor, Sekhmet, Ra. You even whisper to the ones you're not supposed to, just in case they're listening too. Because you don't know what the priest will bring. A blessing, a knife, a name. And you don't know what's worse. Being chosen, or being forgotten. You are 13. The air smells like dust and old oil. Your hair is oiled, parted, pulled so tight that your scalp stings. You're wearing your only clean dress, a pale linen robe that someone else washed and someone else chose. It doesn't feel like celebration. It feels like inspection. No one says the word wedding. They say, it's time. They say, stand here. They say, don't cry. You stand beside a man you've only seen twice. He is older, maybe 30, maybe more. His beard is rough, his hands thick with old clay. He makes bricks for a living, not statues, not temples, just bricks. He does not speak to you. He does not look at you. He signs his name with a thumbprint in wet clay, and someone else nods. You're handed a small basket. In it is bread, a piece of dried fish, and a strip of linen. No ring, no kiss, no promise. The priest overseeing the union says a prayer not to the gods of love, but to the gods of fertility and obedience. You catch only fragments: fruitful womb, quiet home, strong sons. You're told to bow, you do. You're told to leave with him, you do. Later that night, when the house has gone quiet and the moon leans against the sky like a pale coin, you look at your wrist. There is ink on it now. Not decorative, not delicate. Just a mark, a single line and a loop, a symbol of property. Your mother won't explain. She just says you belong to him now. And in her voice, there is no joy. Only relief, one less mouth, one less risk. You lie beside him that night on a mat that smells of sweat and crushed straw. You feel his breath before you feel his hands. You close your eyes. No one taught you about this part. No one said it would feel like being emptied, like something being taken and replaced with silence. In the morning you are given a new name. It is his name. You do not speak it. You are not asked to. Your body is not celebrated. It is recorded. And somewhere in the temple's clay archive, a scribe writes your name in small ink beside his. No room for your thoughts. Just a single note, wife. It comes without warning. A dull ache in your lower belly, then warmth, then wetness. You feel it before you see it. A thick, slow stain spreading down the inside of your linen wrap. You freeze. You're in the courtyard grinding barley with your knees pressed into the dirt. You shift your weight and feel the stickiness cling. You don't know what to do. But your mother sees. She doesn't gasp, doesn't smile, doesn't say congratulations. She just walks over, lifts you gently by the elbow, and says inside. You think she might explain something. She doesn't. She hands you a small bundle, a square of worn linen already dark in the middle. Used before, stiff at the edges. Put this between your legs, she says. Sit on straw and keep quiet. You do as you're told. You sit on the ground, heart-thudding, thighs pressed together. You want to ask, why is this bad? Is something wrong? Instead, your mother lights incense. The bitter smoke curls into your nose and eyes. She mumbles something about the goddess, not by name, just she who marks the young. Then she pours water over your hands. Wash 3 times, she instructs. Left, right, again. The water is cold. It smells faintly of ash. She opens the cooking pot, then stops. You can't touch food today, she says. Why, you ask? Because this is sacred. You don't feel sacred. You feel dirty. You feel alone. The blood won't stop. It stains the linen. It runs down your thigh when you shift. You wonder if you're dying. You wonder if anyone will tell you if you are. Later, your cousin whispers that this will happen again, every moon. She says you must hide it, always. Because if a man sees it, you'll bring bad luck. Because if the gods smell it, they'll turn their faces away. You believe her, because there's no one else who talks about it at all. At sunset, you sit by the wall and listen to laughter. The men have returned. They eat. They joke. No one notices you haven't spoken since morning. No one asks why you're sitting on straw, why your hands won't stop trembling. You curl your toes in the sand and feel it shift soft and warm and uncaring. This is your first blood, but not your first silence, and certainly not your last. It's been 2 moons, no blood, no cramps, no warning, just absence. At first, you thought it was a mistake, then a blessing, then something to be afraid of. You say nothing, but the women notice. The old woman next door, the one with the cloudy eyes and the garlic necklaces, corners you by the well. She looks at your face, your stomach, your hands, then hands you a garlic bulb, still streaked with earth. Bite it, she says. You obey? The taste is sharp. It burns your tongue, your throat, your nose. Now she whispers, leaning close. Breathe out. You do. She sniffs the air in front of your mouth, then nods slowly. Your womb has opened, she announces. You blink. Opened to what? She doesn't answer. She only smiles. And suddenly, everyone seems to know something you don't. They don't say pregnant. They say she carries. They say something is inside. They say the gods have chosen her. You don't feel chosen. You feel watched. Women begin to place charms near your bedding, frogs carved, ivory cats, dried lotus petals tied with red thread. They don't ask your permission. One morning, a neighbor places her hand on your belly while you're still half asleep. You flinch. She laughs. It's good luck, she says. But you don't feel lucky. You feel like a jar no one asked to fill. Your mother begins feeding you different things. Softer. Bread, boiled figs, warm milk. Your husband stops touching you. Not out of tenderness, out of fear. And you still don't know what's happening. No one explains what comes next, only that you must lie still. Only that you must not lift anything heavy. Only that you must not eat onions, or touch raw fish, or look at blood. And so you sit, and you wait. For what, you're not sure. Maybe a child, maybe a curse. Maybe a lesson someone should have taught you before it was too late. At night, you feel something move. Or maybe it's your stomach. Maybe it's your fear. You place your hand gently on the curve of your belly, searching for a heartbeat. But all you hear is silence. And in that silence, something ancient and invisible makes a home inside you. It begins in the dark. You wake before dawn, with a weight pressing down from the inside. Not a cramp, not hunger. Something deeper, a pulling, a tearing. And suddenly your body is no longer yours. You cry out, someone hears. Your mother, an aunt, a neighbor. They do not panic, they nod. It's time, they say. The same words they used on your wedding day. You're laid down on a straw mat dusted with old sand. No pillows, no warmth. Just the smell of smoke, earth, and nerves. The midwife arrives. She's older than your grandmother. Her hands are cracked. Her eyes don't blink much. She doesn't greet you. She kneels between your legs and nods. No prayers, no gods. Just women, moving around you like shadows, boiling water, holding cloths, burning resin. And then it begins. The pain is not like fire. It's like pressure, a mountain pushing through your hips, slow and merciless. You scream. No one tells you to be quiet, but no one answers either. The floor is cold. Your back grates against the dirt. Flies gather. You see them land on the edge of the mat. You hate them for witnessing this. The midwife pushes. You push back. Then something tears inside you. You feel it, the snap of skin, the hot rush of blood. You want to run, but your legs are tied down, with hands, with expectation, with fate, and then it's over. The child comes out, but no sound follows. No cry, no breath, just stillness. Someone whispers, "It's a girl." Another voice says she doesn't cry. They look at you, not with pity, not with anger, with something else, like you've done something wrong that no one can name. She was cursed, one woman murmurs, or she did something wrong before another nods. The midwife wraps the baby in cloth too loosely. You barely see her face. Your mother burns incense near your head and strokes your hair. "It happens," she says, but her voice breaks halfway through. That night, they bury the child. Not in the temple grounds, not with a name, just under the tree behind the goat pen. You lie on your side, bleeding into reeds. No one checks your fever. No one asks how you feel. You press your hand to your belly, now flat hollow, and wonder if you ever held her. Or just the idea of her. You sleep, and dream of sand swallowing footprints before they can be followed. Some girls don't get husbands. They get chosen. For the temple. You remember the day the men came. White robes, sandals too clean for real work. They spoke softly to the elders, nodded toward a line of girls, including you. You stood still. You didn't blink. But they chose Renette. She was your age, maybe a little older. Hair always neatly tied, voice soft like morning mist. Everyone called it an honor. She's been blessed, they said. She'll serve the goddess. She'll live in purity. No one asked if she wanted it. On the day she left, they placed flowers in her hair and painted her eyelids with crushed blue stone. She didn't cry. She didn't smile either. You watched as she was led past the gate into the temple grounds, past the statues, past the walls with no windows, past the last place a girl could change her fate. The next time you saw her, months had passed. You were delivering cloth. You caught a glimpse of her in the courtyard sweeping, alone. She didn't see you at first. Her eyes were down, her shoulders stooped, but then she looked up, and for a moment the air between you went still. She didn't speak, just pressed one finger to her lips, then to her heart, then vanished inside. Later, someone whispered that temple girls don't sleep on beds. They sleep on stone, to keep them humble. They don't eat garlic, to keep them clean. They hold amulets between their teeth when they sleep, not for blessing, but to ward off Kiwi Duke male spirits. You asked your mother what that meant. She shook her head. You don't ask things like that, she said. But you couldn't stop thinking about Renette. How her name was now written on a list in the temple, but not in the family line. How her voice, once gentle and curious, had become absent. The next time you passed the temple, you tried to call her name, quietly, just once. No one answered, not her, not the goddess, not even the wind. And for the first time, you understood something terrifying, that even those who serve the gods can vanish without being taken. You laughed, not loudly, not rudely, just once, a soft snort that escaped when the traveling merchant made a joke about donkeys and drunk priests. Your brother chuckled too. So did two men nearby, but they weren't the problem. You were. That night, your father didn't speak to you. He just looked at you, not with anger, but with something harder, shame. Your mother scrubbed your hands longer than usual before dinner. She whispered a prayer under her breath and avoided your eyes. The next morning, a woman came to your house. She was dressed in pale linen and wore a necklace of carved bone. You'd seen her once before during a burial. She didn't smile. She took your chin gently between her fingers, tilted your head, pressed something cold to your forehead. It was a stone amulet, flat, heavy, smelling faintly of copper and smoke. She mumbled words you didn't recognize. Not the gods you knew, not the gods anyone talked about. Your mother wept softly in the corner. The woman pulled away and said she should not laugh like that. It invites something in. You wanted to ask, what did I invite joy, light, life? But you didn't. Because you'd already learned questions only made things worse. For 3 nights after that, your father burned resin near your mat before sleep, not to bless you, to protect the others from you. You were told to chew a sprig of bitter herb every morning. To dry the throat, they said, to stop it from bubbling over with sound. No one told your brothers to chew it. No one told the merchant to leave town. Just you. You stopped laughing. You stopped smiling. You watched your own face in a bowl of water and wondered if it had changed, if something inside you had shifted. Something dangerous. Something feminine. Weeks passed. People forgot. But you didn't. You laughed again once, months later, quietly into your sleeve. No one heard, but you still looked over your shoulder, because even joy, if it comes from the wrong lips, can be treated like a curse. You spend your days among threads, linen, flax, wool when you're lucky. You sit at the loom from sunrise until the shadows stretch long across the dirt floor. Your back curves into a shape it will never uncurl from. You're taught to count in rows, not in hours, to know progress by tension, not by joy. The loom is taller than you. Its frame creaks when the humidity rises. It smells like splinters oil and other girls' sweat. When you work quickly, your hands blister. When you work slowly, your name is called. Once, the overseer called it gently. Then again, sharper. You stood, he walked behind you, said something about checking your position. His hand brushed your shoulder, then your spine, then lower. You froze. You didn't speak. No one did. Afterward, you returned to your seat. The other girls kept weaving, their eyes fixed forward, their faces blank. You thought maybe he made a mistake. Maybe it won't happen again. It did, not every day. Just enough days to remind you the fabric you weave is not the only thing expected of you. You tried to complain once quietly to the woman who managed the threads. She looked at you with tired eyes and said, "Keep your head down. He gets bored faster when you don't react." You stopped speaking about it. Instead, you hid your bruises beneath layers of woven cloth, your own handiwork. Sometimes they disappeared. Sometimes they didn't. One morning you arrived to find your loom gone. No warning, no explanation. Another girl was in your spot. You stood there empty-handed. The overseer passed by. He didn't speak, but his hand brushed your back again lightly, as if to say, this loom was never yours to begin with. You sat on the floor that day. You pulled loose threads from the basket and wound them around your fingers tighter and tighter until the skin beneath turned pale. No one noticed, and even if they had, what would they say? That's what happens. It's the way of things. At least you still have work, you still have hands, still have eyes, still have silence. But the bruises fade faster than the memory, and you learn that some wounds don't want to heal, because healing means pretending they weren't real. It begins with a sharp pain in your lower belly, not the dull ache of your moon cycle. This is deeper, like something is tugging at you from inside, twisting with its own will. You tell your mother. She looks at you for a moment. Too long, too still, then tells you to go to the healer. You walk there alone. His house is made of stone, cool, quiet, smelling of ash and old roots. You sit on a woven mat that scratches your legs. You wait. He enters, doesn't greet you, doesn't ask your name, doesn't ask what you feel. He lifts your robe without a word. His hands are dry, cold. They press down hard on your stomach fingers, moving as if you were dough. You wince. He frowns, but not at you, at something unseen. Then he reaches for a bowl, herbs, a black liquid, a stone needle. You want to ask, what is that? But your voice doesn't work here. He pricks your skin, not deep, but it stings. He mutters something not to you, to the air. He rubs crushed leaves onto your thighs. He pushes something bitter under your tongue. You gag. He nods. When it's done, he wraps a thin band around your waist. Tells you, "Don't remove this until the pain fades." You nod. Because what else can you do? Outside the sun is too bright. You squint and walk home with the taste of earth still clinging to your teeth. Your mother waits. She burns a strip of papyrus and waves the smoke around your head. She doesn't ask what he did. She doesn't want to know. She only says, "Don't speak of it." And so, you don't. But at night, you lie awake, hands on your belly. You wonder, was it a sickness? A punishment? A test, or just a reminder that even pain must be silent? Even fear must be swallowed? Your body hurts, but not like before. It feels distant, like a room someone else entered and didn't bother to clean after. You dream of fire, of roots growing from your stomach, of a voice you don't recognize whispering, "This is not yours." And when you wake, your hands are still there, clutching something you never gave away, but somehow lost anyway. They chose her, not you. Not this time. Her name was Henut. She had steady hands and a quiet mouth, the kind of girl the elders liked. The kind the gods supposedly liked even more. When the temple men arrived, no one asked if she wanted it. They simply said, "She's ready." And just like that, her life ended. And another began. Everyone in the village came to watch. They dressed her in fresh linen, painted her lips with red ochre, braided her hair like a queen. They said prayers. They sang songs. She stood still, eyes not lowered but not defiant either, just far away. You tried to catch her gaze. You waved. She didn't wave back. "She is blessed," someone whispered behind you, chosen by Isis herself. The temple gates opened and she stepped through. The door closed behind her. The crowd cheered, and you felt something inside you go quiet. Months passed. You asked about her once. Your mother hushed you. She's holy now. Her world is different. But one day you were sent to deliver cloth to the temple. You waited in the outer courtyard by the statue of Hathor. And there she was sweeping. Her robes were simple, her face bare. She moved like someone underwater. She didn't notice you until you whispered her name. She turned, eyes wide, then narrowed, then tired. She walked over slowly, glanced around, then leaned in. "They don't let us speak freely," she murmured. "I'm not allowed to laugh, or sing, or think about family." You tried to ask if she missed home, but she shook her head. "I can't say I do," she said softly, "but I can't say I don't either." She touched your wrist. Her fingers were cold and light, like she wasn't entirely here anymore. "This is a golden place," she said. "Golden walls, golden rules, golden silence." Then she paused. "Looked into your eyes. It shines," she said. "But it's still a cage." Before you could answer, another priestess appeared. Henut stepped back. She bowed, and just like that, the moment vanished. You left the temple with the cloth delivered, with your questions unanswered, and with a single thought you couldn't shake. Sometimes the gods don't chain women in dungeons. They give them titles and take away their names. You didn't mean to learn. It just happened. Your brother was studying with a wax tablet under the fig tree. You passed by with a basket of lentils. You paused. He was drawing shapes, strange curves, tiny birds, a folded cloth, a snake. You stared too long, he noticed. "You want to try," he whispered. You nodded. That night, after everyone slept, he brought you a broken shard of pottery and a stick of coal. He drew a single symbol, a reed leaf. "You," he said. "You copied it. Poorly." He laughed, but you kept trying. Night after night, you added more symbols. A foot, a sun, a jar. Each one felt like magic, like breathing where you weren't supposed to. You didn't speak of it. Not to your mother, not to anyone. It was yours. Until it wasn't. One morning your father found the pottery shard under your mat. He turned it over slowly, staring at the black curves. Then he looked at you. "What is this?" he asked. You opened your mouth, but no sound came. Because how do you explain joy when you've been told joy is not your right? He didn't yell. He didn't hit you. He walked outside, raised his arm, and smashed the shard against the stone step. It split in 3. Then he went inside, took the scroll your brother had left out, and tossed it into the hearth. You watched the flames eat the words. Not fast, not slow, just cruel. "Girls who read forget their place," he said. "Girls who know too much become dangerous. Girls like that bring shame." That night you couldn't sleep. You stared at the ceiling and traced letters in your mind, but each line felt like a sin, each curve like a blade. The next day you passed by a wall covered in inscriptions. You didn't look. You kept your head down. But something inside you still whispered them syllables, half remembered, half forbidden. And though your lips stayed shut, your heart still read. Because once your mind opens, it doesn't close without bleeding. You hear it first as a whisper, then as a warning, then as a curse. There's a girl in the village above yours, 15, maybe 16. No husband, no suitor, but her belly is round. No one says pregnant, they say swollen. They say marked. They say chosen by a dark thing. You see her once. She's walking by the canal, eyes hollow, feet bare. She stumbles, no one helps. The women clutch their amulets. The men avert their eyes. She tempted something, your aunt mutters. Maybe Sobek himself. Her voice isn't joking. No one asks who touched her. They only ask what she did to invite it. Then comes the ritual. At dawn they bring her to the holy pond near the temple. The water is green and quite a place for prayers and punishment alike. The priest dips a reed into the pond, lets the drops fall on her head. She flinches. They say she resists. They say the demon clings. Next, they rub her belly with lotus paste and chant something old, something that sounds like dust being swept through bone. You hide behind a column watching. You shouldn't be here, but you are. The girl tries to speak. Her lips move, but a priest presses 2 fingers to her mouth. Silence. The gods demand silence. Then she is lowered into the water, not gently, not lovingly. Her head disappears. Her belly follows. They hold her there. 1 second, 2, 3. You count until your fingers tremble. Then they let her up. She gasps, coughs, weeps. The ritual is complete. They say if the spirit was in her, it is gone now. But something else is gone too. Later that night, you ask what happened to her. No one answers. You ask again the next day. Still silence. By the 3rd day, her name is no longer spoken. Even the children won't play near the path she once walked. You pass by the pond again. The water ripples slightly, though there is no wind. You think of her face, her belly, her silence, and something inside you whispers, if fear is heavy enough, it can grow inside a girl like a child. It begins with a baby's death, a boy just hours old, born under a full moon, didn't cry, didn't breathe long, wrapped in linen, buried before sunrise. No ceremony, only questions. Who was near the house? Was there bad air? Did anyone bleed this week? Bleed? The word lingers like smoke. Eyes turn, slowly, toward the women. They ask about cycles, about signs, about anything unnatural. You try to disappear into the wall. But someone remembers you were seen leaving the water well 3 days ago, holding your side. You were pale. They call your name. You don't answer. So they call louder. You stand, you step forward. They bring the incense, thick smoke from crushed resin. You're told to breathe in. Slowly, they say, if your lungs are pure, the gods will be pleased. You do as told. The smoke bites. Your chest tightens. You cough. Just once, but it's enough. Gasps ripple through the circle. Someone mutters, there's something in her. Another nods. The baby died because of this. You want to scream. But screaming would make it worse. So you bite your lip and shake your head. They bring the dust next. Gold powder from crushed amulets stirred with sacred ash. You must sniff it to test for possession. You do. The dust sticks to the inside of your nose. It burns. Your eyes water. You tremble. And then silence. You wait for someone to say, she's clean. No one does. You're not punished. Not publicly, not officially. But the next day your chores are doubled. You're not invited to fetch water. You're not allowed near newborns. The neighbors stop speaking to you. And in the quiet of night, your mother presses her hands to your face. She doesn't say, I believe you. She only whispers, stay invisible for a while. So you do. You fold your voice into your chest. You hide your blood like it's poison. You avoid every mirror, every question. Because in a world that doesn't understand your body, it's safer to pretend it doesn't exist. She's only 10. Too small for the jug she's asked to carry. Too thin for the dress she wears. Too quiet for her age. Her mother is a widow. No brothers, no land. Just a daughter and hunger. They come with grain. A sack. Not large, not fresh. But it will last through the flood season. The men bring a scroll. And a name. The girl's name. You watch from the corner as her mother holds the papyrus, hands shaking, eyes dry. Not because she doesn't want to cry, but because she's already cried too much. She'll be taken care of, the scribe says. She'll have food, she'll belong. You hear that word belong and feel something twist in your chest. The girl doesn't speak. They don't ask her to. She stands still, staring at the wall, where a lizard clings to the mud brick like it's trying not to be seen. The agreement is made. The grain is left. The name is gone. Later, you see the girl sitting by the water trough. Her eyes are swollen. Not from a beating, from weeping into a cloth she keeps hidden in her sleeve. You sit beside her. She doesn't look up, but she speaks barely above a whisper. Is it far? You don't know. You say maybe. She nods, still not looking at you. Then she says, will they let me bring my doll? You pause. Because the doll, a bundle of reeds and string, is missing a leg, a face, and any power to protect her. But you say, of course. She exhales like someone twice her age. And then she does look at you. My mother says it's better than starving. You nod. She reaches out, holds your hand for just a moment, then says one word, sister. Not because you are, but because you were the last one to hold space for her fear. That night, after they lead her away, you hear her mother sobbing into the sack of grain, a sound not of victory or peace or survival, but of a name sold for the right to see one more sunrise. The festival of Hathor comes only once a year, the goddess of music, dance, and love. The one said to laugh with the sound of tambourines, the one whose statue wears earrings bigger than your fists. They say the air turns sweeter on this day, that even the river runs slower to listen. You wait all week. You plan to wear the blue sash your aunt gave you. You polish your sandals with river clay, but most of all, you prepare a song. Just a short hymn, one verse. You practiced it in your head, beneath your breath, between chores. It's not for performance, not for others. It's for her, Hathor, the goddess of beauty, of joy, the one god who might understand girls like you. On the day of the festival, you rise early. You braid your hair tight and neat. You walk to the temple courtyard. The drums echo, the priests chant. You stand in the back waiting for the moment to pause. A silence, a space where your voice might slip through like sun between leaves. You begin, barely above a whisper, a single line, a rising note, then a shadow. Your father's hand wraps around your arm. He pulls you aside, hard, silent. Later at home, he doesn't yell. He takes a small clay bowl, scoops mud from the edge of the hearth, and smears it across your lips. You do not sing before you are wed, he says. Only a harlot sings alone. Your mother watches, does not intervene. That night, you kneel by the river. You dip your face in the water to wash the mud away. But it clings, not to your skin, to your memory. You try to hum your hymn again, just in your head. But the notes catch in your throat. You are too young to understand what shame is made of, but old enough to carry it in your voice. The next time the festival comes, you do not attend. You stay home. You press your fingers to your lips and wonder what other girls are singing, and how many of them were told silence is safer than praise. You are feverish. Your skin sticks to the linen mat. Your breath smells like copper and salt. Your mouth is dry. Your hair damp, but not from bathing, from sweat that clings and never cools. You whisper to your mother, "Can I go to the pond?" She doesn't answer. She just places a dried date on your tongue and turns away. You know what today is. The day of still water. A sacred time. Women in their monthly bleeding must not touch water, especially not the communal pond. The priests say your blood angers the river spirit. Even a drop can cause the fish to flee. Even a toe can wake a demon from the bottom. But your skin aches, the back of your knees burn, and the sweat on your neck smells like something dying. At dusk, you slip away, quiet as a breath between prayers. The path is soft with sand. The pond waits calm, silent, shining like oil. You don't step in. You don't dive. You just kneel and lower one hand, just a finger. You swirl it through the water, tracing the shape of a moon. It feels like mercy. Behind you, a twig snaps. You jerk your hand back. A woman, the priest's wife, is watching. She says nothing, just turns and leaves. You walk home slowly. The fever fades slightly, but something else rises dread. The next morning, the temple boy appears at your door. He hands your mother a broom made of dry reeds. She nods, no questions. And then you are sent to the temple, not to pray, to clean. All day you sweep the sandstone floors, every inch, even beneath the altar. The dust clings to your eyelashes, your back cramps. The priest walks past you thrice, never speaks, but always watches. By dusk, your hands are raw. You cough from the incense smoke. Your fever is gone, but you feel colder than before. That night, your mother rubs herbs on your palms. She says you should not have gone. You want to reply, but I was burning. But you don't, because you've learned some pain must be endured in silence. Even if water would have soothed it, even if the gods were never watching. You first hear the story from a boy. He tells it with wide eyes and sand-streaked knees. There's a woman buried in the temple wall, he says. They put her there to stop the god Seth from entering. You laugh. He doesn't. He swears it's true. She was screaming. He whispers. But they sealed it before the sound could get out. You can still hear her sometimes. You go home and ask your mother, is it real she's grinding grain? The stone thuds against the slab. She doesn't stop. She doesn't look at you. Instead, she says some questions are as dangerous as the answers. That night, you dream of walls, closing, tightening, breathing. In the morning, you walk past the temple and run your hand along the side. The mud brick is warm, rough. One section is different, smoother, too smooth. You press your ear against it. You hear nothing, but feel something. A stillness that isn't silence, like breath held too long, like tears dried before they could fall. You begin to watch walls differently. At home, in the bathhouse, at the granary. Wherever you go, you look for the seams, the edges, the parts that don't quite fit. One day you whisper to the cracks, "Were you real?" There is no reply. Of course, but you start to speak to them anyway. Small things. I don't like the overseer. I wish my sister hadn't married that man. I want to learn to read. Each time you feel lighter, as if someone listens, someone who doesn't answer, doesn't judge, doesn't tell you to be quiet. But then one evening, your uncle comes to repair the courtyard wall. You hear his hammer strike a hollow place. You freeze. He taps again, shrugs, fills it with new clay. You watch him cover the patch, smooth it, seal it, and just like that, the place where your whispers went gone. That night, you don't speak. You lie awake, tracing the lines on your ceiling with your eyes, and think if a woman was buried in a wall, maybe it wasn't to stop a god. Maybe it was to keep her voice from escaping. And if so, maybe all these walls remember more than they were built to hold. She lives near the edge of the village, past the palm trees, beyond the broken fence. No one visits her. They say she lost her husband 20 years ago. No sons, no brothers, just her. And the body of a dried-up cat on a mat near the door. Children dare each other to run past her house, but never stop. Not after what they say they saw. She talks to the cat, she eats dirt. She hasn't smiled since the flood. But you see her sometimes, sweeping dust with a frayed reed broom, humming, not songs, just sound, like breath and rhythm. You once brought her a bowl of lentils. Your mother made you. She opened the door slowly. Her eyes were yellowed, her hands spotted, her back bent like the bow of a boat long adrift. She looked at the bowl, then at you. "You're not scared of me?" she asked. You shook your head, not because you weren't, but because fear feels rude in front of someone so small. She took the bowl, nodded, didn't thank you. But before you turned to leave, she said, "They won't let me marry again." You paused. "I asked," she added, "but they said I'd need my son's permission." She laughed, soft, dry, like dust, falling in a shaft of light. "But I don't have a son," she said, "so I suppose I'll wait. For what you asked." She looked up, smiled, "For someone to remember me." Since then, you walk slower past her door. You glance in. Sometimes she's not there. Sometimes she's sitting with the cat. Sometimes she's sweeping the same patch of earth, again and again. You wonder what happens when a woman outlives all names tied to her. When even the priests forget her husband's lineage, when no one remembers her father's trade, when she becomes just herself, and you think maybe the worst thing is not to be unloved, but to be unspoken. That night, you whisper her name once into the dark, just to prove someone still can. You turn 15, no ceremony, no gifts, just a bowl of honeyed barley and an early morning bath. Your mother brushes your hair in silence. Then she takes out a tiny clay jar. It's pale brown, worn at the edges, smells faintly of mint ash and something too soft to name. You ask, "What is it?" She says, "Just a scent." It's time. She dips 2 fingers in the balm, smears it gently behind your ears, at the back of your neck, just under your collarbone. The touch is tender. The meaning is not. "This will calm you," she says. "It will help you settle." You don't know what that means, but she won't explain. Later that day, the scent still clings, even as you wash clothes by the river, even as you hang wet sheets over thorny branches, even as you press your cheek to the mat trying to nap. It follows you. You sniff your sleeve, your hair, your pillow. Still there. Sweet, but dull. Not like flowers, more like forgetting. At dinner, your father nods in approval. "Smells like she's growing up," he says. You wish he'd said nothing. You try to scrub your neck in the dark with river mud. You rub until your skin stings. But the scent lingers. Days pass. You notice things. The neighbor's son stops teasing you. The potter's wife avoids letting you hold her baby. You are told to lower your eyes more, laugh less. And when a man comes to your home with a proposal, your mother leans closer and reapplies the balm. This way, she says you won't want more than you should. You ask more of what? She pauses, then whispers freedom, hunger, that kind of thing. That night, you lie in bed. The breeze moves through the crack in the wall. The moonlight rests on your palm. But the scent still clings behind your ear, in your hair, on your skin. You wonder if they could bottle a smell to make you obedient. What else could they teach you? Not to want you press your hand to your chest. And think it's not the balm that's heavy. It's what it's made to erase. You gave birth under a sliver of moonlight. No candles, just the glow of coals and the breath of the midwife. It was fast, too fast. The baby slid out in silence. You waited. Midwife slapped, rubbed, lifted, lowered. Still silence. You asked, "Why isn't he crying?" But no one answered. They wrapped him anyway. Tight, like swaddling would somehow make him more real. Someone lit incense. Someone whispered a name you hadn't chosen. They placed him in your arms for a moment, then took him away. You didn't scream. You didn't sob. Because you were told he belonged to Ra. He wasn't meant to stay. You mustn't cry. His soul might lose its way. Instead, they gave you a white mask to wear. It covered half your face, made of soft clay and linen shaped to stay neutral. You weren't allowed to speak at the burial, only to stand, only to breathe. Inside your chest cracked like dried mud, but you showed nothing. After your mother burned herbs beside your sleeping mat, she rubbed oil on your stomach and said the gods will return another. You nodded, because that was what you were supposed to do. At night, you lay awake, hands on your empty belly. You whispered his name, the one you had picked, the one no one used. Just once, into the dark, into the silence. You felt part of yourself leave with it. And the next morning, when your husband asked if dinner was ready, you got up. You stirred the lentils. You salted the bread. You kept moving, but that night you took a sliver of linen from the blanket they wrapped him in. You hid it in the thatch of the roof. Not because it would change anything, but because you needed something that remembered, because no one else would say he existed. And you needed to believe you had once held something alive, even if it was only for a breath. It's barely a stone, buried beneath weeds, at the edge of the old path. No shrine, no offering bowls, just a flat slab half covered in silt and insect husks. You find it while chasing a runaway goat. You trip, fall. Your hand lands on something warm from the sun, but not soft. You brush it off. Then you see it tie wife of the builder, Pa Amenhotep. That's all. No date, no lineage, no tale of children, no note of what she loved or feared or dreamed. Just a name and a title tied to someone else. You kneel, not because you're told to, but because something about that name tie feels like it's waiting. You read it aloud, once, then again, each time slower, like tasting a memory not your own. You try to picture her, not the builder's wife, just her. Maybe she liked singing to herself while making lentils. Maybe she once stole a fig when no one was looking. Maybe she hated weaving but pretended to love it. You'll never know. But saying her name feels like an act of resistance. Because they buried her in the dirt. But didn't bury her voice. Not if you say it. Not if anyone speaks her back into breath. You place a pebble on the stone, something small, solid, real. You whisper, "I see you." And as you stand to go, you look back once. The slab does not glow. The wind does not shift. The goat keeps chewing. But deep down, something inside you settles, like a hand you didn't know was reaching, finally held. She sleeps in your lap, your daughter, still small enough that her legs curl up like vines, still young enough to believe the world is gentle. The sun has dipped, the air cools, dust settles on your arms like the touch of something old, and watching. You brush her hair behind her ear. Her breath is slow, steady. You look around, no one is near, no one is listening. And yet your heart races like you're about to do something forbidden. You lean closer. Your lips barely move. Don't believe all they teach you, you whisper. Not everything sacred is good. Not everything silent is safe. And not everything forbidden is wrong. Your voice is dry-cracked from years of holding back. But tonight, it slides out like water finding a crack in the stone. She stirs but does not wake. You keep going. If they say you're too much, don't shrink. If they say you must bow, ask who benefits. If they say you can't, ask why. A breeze stirs the dust at your feet. The earth shifts just slightly, and you know you've said too much. And yet, maybe not enough. You press your palm to her back. She sighs in her sleep. For a moment, you almost weep. Not from sadness, from knowing that someone might carry your voice forward, even if it's hidden beneath sand and shadow. You look at her tiny fingers, then at the calluses on your own. A whole history separates you, and yet here she is, the proof you survived long enough to whisper. Above, the sky deepens. The stars blink slowly into place. You shift, laying her gently on the mat. Then you whisper once more, this time into the open night. And just like that, history cracked. Just a little. You're cleaning the inner chamber of the temple. The room is warm, filled with the smell of oilstone and something sweet, lotus maybe, or the memory of it. Your task is simple: sweep, polish, light the incense. But your eyes wander. On the far shelf, half hidden behind a folded linen robe, you see it. A small disc, bronze, dull-edged, curved handle wrapped in worn leather. A mirror. Not glass, they don't make those here. Just polished metal, smooth enough to shimmer back something like a face. You glance over your shoulder. No one. You pick it up. Light, cool. You tilt it. And there, a reflection. Not sharp, not exact. But you see your eyes, your brow, the edge of your mouth. You don't smile. You stare. For a second you wonder, is this really me? You haven't seen yourself like this ever. There's water, yes, but water distorts. It moves. It lies. This holds steady, and suddenly you see it. A mark near your temple, a curl of hair you didn't know escaped, a sadness in your gaze you didn't know was visible. Then a voice cuts the silence. Put that down. You jump. A guard. You didn't hear him enter. That is not for you. You lower the mirror. Why, you ask? He frowns. Because women don't need to see themselves. Beauty is dangerous. Vanity is sin. You try to hide your face. He leaves. You return the mirror. But for the rest of the day, the image lingers in your mind. Not because you were beautiful. You're not sure you were. But because it was the first time you saw yourself and didn't feel invisible. That night at home, you touch your cheek the same way you did in the reflection. You think of every girl who's never looked into a mirror, every woman who's only seen herself through others' eyes. And you wonder, if you are never allowed to look at your own face, how will you ever know it wasn't something worth seeing? You see her when helping clean the stables of the temple servants. She is older than you, quiet, moves like someone who has learned not to startle the air. When she bends to scoop straw, her tunic lifts slightly, and you see it, a mark deep blue faded with time. Not a bruise, not dirt, ink, a tattoo, etched just below her navel, a symbol you've seen before, on temple doors, amulets, and the collars of sacred animals belonging to Amun. Your breath catches, not because it's ugly, it's not. Not because it's secret, it's not supposed to be, but because it says something she never got to say for herself. Later, when no one is near you, gather courage and whisper, did it hurt? She looks at you, and for the first time, all day smiles. Not as much as the silence that came after. You ask, why did they mark you? She shrugs. They said it was to protect me, to show the God that I was his. But did you want it? Her eyes go soft, like someone looking through water. Wanting is a luxury, she says. You don't reply. Just stare at your own belly, bare, blank, but not untouched. She sees your gaze. Then, in a voice barely audible, the ink was cold, the needle was bone. They didn't ask me, just held me still. You shiver, not from cold, but from imagining a body stilled by hands not its own, and marked to be remembered, but not as a person, as property. That night, you look at yourself in the flickering oil lamp. You run a finger over your stomach, smooth, for now. You think about how names, gods, and ownership can be carved into skin, and how a woman's silence often becomes part of her identity, not because she chose it, but because someone else wrote it on her, before she ever found her voice. Your cousin dies in childbirth. She was 17, her first child. A girl, they say, still breathing, but barely. Your cousin was not. They carry her out before dawn. No music, no weeping. Just a line of women in muted linens walking as if balancing the sky. You are handed a white scarf. Hold this, your mother says, to keep your face soft. At the temple gate, the priest says, there will be no crying. Tears mislead the soul. She must walk to the afterlife, undistracted. So you press the scarf to your mouth, not to cough, not to sneeze, but to hold back something deeper. They place her body on a woven mat. The baby lies next to her, breathing, but quiet. A wet nurse waits nearby. You see your cousin's face, still, pale. Lips chapped, nose bloodied, but eyes closed with the calm of someone who never got to choose rest in life. You want to scream, to say, she was kind, she was afraid. She wanted to name her daughter after the moon. But you say nothing, because every woman there is stone. Even her mother. Even you. As the last prayer is sung, you feel it rise not in your throat, but in your palms. You've been clenching the scarf too tightly. It's damp. Not from tears, from sweat, from pressure, from the effort of pretending this doesn't shatter something inside you. Back at home, you sneak behind the clay house. Dig a hole with your fingers, not deep. You place the scarf in it, folded, still shaped like your grip. You cover it with sand. Not because she will come back, not because it's a proper offering, but because in a world where crying is banned, you needed a place to bury your sorrow. Somewhere it wouldn't be scolded. Somewhere it could rest. You wait until the house sleeps. The fire has died. Your husband snores. The baby stirs in its basket, but does not wake. You slip out quietly, barefoot, carrying only a small shard of charcoal and a piece of silence too large for your chest. You walk to the edge of the village, where the wind meets the sand and the river pretends to forget the world. There, beneath the stars, you kneel. You smooth a patch of sand with your palm. Then slowly, you begin to write. The words are clumsy because no one taught you spelling, but the rhythm is right. You've hummed it in your head for weeks. It's a hymn to Hathor, to the goddess of joy, of music, of love. You dare not sing it aloud. Your father once told you, a woman's voice invites trouble. Your mother once warned, singing is for wives of men, not wives of gods. But here, with no ears but wind, you let your finger draw the melody into the earth. Each line a secret, each word a rebellion. You reach the final verse, the one about dancing in the temple, when a gust of wind tears across the sand. And just like that, it's gone. Your song, your letters, your only proof that something once rose inside you. You sit back, blink, breathe. You want to scream, but instead, you press your hands into the sand as if trying to hold it still. The truth is, it's not the wind that hurts. It's knowing that no one was ever meant to hear you, that you could spend a lifetime creating and still have your only song erased in a second by something no one even sees. The sadness isn't the silence. It's the certainty that your silence was designed. You stand, brush off your skirt, leave no trace, and as you walk home, the only melody left is the echo of a voice that the world refused to let rise. Once a year, the god leaves his temple. He is carried on golden poles under a canopy of linen, dyed blue like the midday sky. Men in white skirts beat drums. Priests chant in a language older than memory. Incense clouds roll down the street like ghost smoke. It is the festival of procession. Everyone gathers. Men line the front. Children climb walls. Women are told to stay behind, to watch from rooftops, to be still, to be respectful. You are 16 and tired of watching, so you wrap yourself in 3 layers of cloth, pull the edge of your headscarf low, lower your gaze, step into the crowd, your heart beats loud. Not from guilt, from the strange thrill of being. The heat presses in, the drums rattle your ribs, the scent of myrrh stings your eyes. And then he passes. The statue, the god. Tall, unmoving, unreadable. People cheer, throw petals. You do not. You stare. Not at the god. At the men carrying him. At the faces around you, proud, open, loud. And you feel it again, you exist. Not behind a curtain, not through someone else's name, but here now, in the thick of the sacred. Then, someone sees you. A priest, or maybe just a man in linen who notices your sandals too small, too worn, too feminine. He doesn't speak. He doesn't scold. He just looks. That look. It doesn't carry anger. It carries something worse, dismissal. Like dust brushed off a scroll. Like an insect too small to swat. It says, you don't belong. And suddenly, you don't. You step back, meld into the crowd, disappear before the statue loops around again. You return to the rooftop, where your mother waits. She doesn't ask. She doesn't need to. Your face tells enough. She only says, some places were never meant for us. But you think, what if they were? What if you just got there first? They say she taught in secret. Not in temples, not in public halls. Just a dark corner of her home behind a curtain that smelled of ink and old lemons. Only girls, only after sunset, only those who knew how to keep quiet. She taught them to read hieratic, to count jars of grain without touching, to write prayers and questions. She said learning is not just for men who wear linen robes. You never met her, but you knew of her. Your cousin went once, came back with fingers stained in soot. Eyes bright, as if she'd seen the stars blink just for her. Then one night it ended. The priest came. No fire, no shouting, just silence, the kind that slides under doors and wraps around throats. The next morning, her name was gone from the temple ledger, her house sealed, her scrolls confiscated, her students told she was confused, sick, touched by false spirits. But people talk. Whispers survive where names don't. They say the elders burned her writings, not all at once, page by page, so the lesson would linger. Someone said she cried. Someone else said she smiled as they lit the first page. That night, you sneak into the edge of the temple garden. The fire pit still glows faintly. You find a scrap half-burned, charred at the edges but legible. One sentence, scrawled in quick, uneven lines, I am not a witch, I just know how to read. You hold the ash-flaked paper in both hands, and you feel something stir. Anger, grief. Not just for her, but for what was lost with her. Because what they fear is never just knowledge. It's the question that follows. If she could learn, why not others? You fold the scrap. Tuck it into your sash. Not as proof it's too fragile, but as defiance. Later that night, you trace the words on your thigh with your finger. Not to remember, to keep her breathing in inkless, invisible strokes. Because they may have burned her name, but they didn't burn the silence she cracked. You sweep the floor. It's late. The baby is quiet. The house smells of old oil and yesterday's onions. Your daughter, 5, maybe 6, sits in the corner. She watches you. Not with playfulness, not with questions, with stillness. You move from one end of the room to the other. She mimics your hands on the floor, traces circles on the ground with her tiny fingers. You hang clothes. She lifts a rag to her shoulder, folds it, unfolds it, folds it again. You think she's just playing. But later, you spill water by the stove. Before you can move, she jumps up, grabs a cloth, and kneels to wipe it up. Without being told. Without looking at you. Like it was expected. Like it was already written in her body. That night, as you scrub the clay pot too long, just to stay awake, she sits beside you. Quiet. Small hands folded. She asks, "Mais que vois Kong?" The question pierces. You look at her. At the gentle slope of her nose, at the smudge of ash on her wrist, at the way her eyes are already learning to search your face for permission. You want to say yes. You want to say, I'm happy because of you. But the truth won't fit in your throat, because you know what she's really asking. Not, are you happy today? But is this what it means to be a woman? So you smile, you nod, and you say nothing. She rests her head on your arm, falls asleep there. You keep scrubbing. The pot is clean, has been. But your hand doesn't stop, because some silences are harder to break than any curse. And as your daughter breathes soft against your skin, you wonder when she grows up. Will she look at herself the way you look at the wall? Will she whisper her dreams only to the wind? Or will she remember this moment, not your words, but your face when you chose not to lie? And maybe, just maybe, she'll ask a different question. You walk to the river at dusk, alone. The baby's asleep. Your husband has gone to drink with the brickworkers. No one calls your name. No one checks where you go, because no one thinks you matter once you've done your tasks. You reach the soft bank where the reeds sigh in the wind. You step out of your sandals. Let your bare feet press into the warm sand. The silt shifts, takes your shape, accepts you without question. You walk slowly, not toward anything, but away from everything. Each step leaves a mark, a gentle imprint. A sentence the world doesn't know how to read. You pause, look behind you. There they are, 10 faint footprints, curved inward like commas, soft, almost shy. They won't last. You know that. The wind will come. The river will swell. By morning the earth will be smooth again, like you were never here. But for now, the land remembers. And that's more than your family will do. More than the temple scribes. More than the granite monuments that record only kings and battles. You crouch, drag your fingers through the sand. You write nothing, because you don't have to. The earth already knows you. It felt your weight. It heard the hush in your footsteps. It held the shape of your sorrow. No one will carve your name into limestone. No priest will chant your story. No scroll will bear your thoughts. But this soft, shifting dust, it holds your outline longer than most hearts do. And as the sun bleeds orange into the river, you whisper, I was here. The breeze picks up. It doesn't answer. But it doesn't erase you either. Not yet. There's a straw mat near the doorway. That's yours, not because anyone said so, but because it's the only space no one else wants. It's drafty, close to the dust. And when it rains rare but real, it floods first. Your husband sleeps on the raised platform, a woven mattress, faded, but thick. Sometimes when he's too drunk, he passes out across the whole width. You wait, always wait, not just for sleep but for permission to rest. Sometimes he rolls over and mutters, your turn. Sometimes he doesn't say anything. Just leaves. You crawl into the warmth he left behind. It smells of sweat, of onions, of the day's anger. You try not to breathe. You lie on your side. Your knees curl inward. You pull the thin cloth over your shoulder. The silence is heavy, but not quiet. You hear mice scratching. A beetle taps somewhere near the wall. And somewhere in your chest, something aches a pain, not sharp, but lingering, like a bruise in your soul. You used to dream of having your own bed, maybe by a window, with soft cloth, and no footsteps stepping over you to get outside. Now you just hope for a night where no one needs your body, where you can lie still, untouched, and pretend the world isn't built to bend you. Sometimes you cry, but not with tears. Your throat tightens, your breath hiccups silently. No sound escapes, because even crying feels like a luxury, like something someone might scold you for. The mat creaks as you shift. The door curtain flutters with a passing breeze. You stare at the ceiling mud and straw pressed together above you like a sky that doesn't care. And you think, I don't know if I'm tired, or if this is just what living feels like. You close your eyes, not to sleep, to disappear. You help her because no one else will. The village midwife, wrinkled like bark, hair tied in a cloth stained with time. Eyes sharper than obsidian, even in the dark. She doesn't speak unless necessary. She doesn't pray aloud, but her hands move like they remember 1,000 births. You carry her water, boil rags, gather herbs with names you're not allowed to say. You think birth is supposed to be beautiful. Then you see it, the blood, the shaking, the sounds that aren't screams. They're growls pulled from a soul that doesn't want to split again. The midwife doesn't flinch. She kneels, elbows deep in life, one hand pressing, one hand guiding, and in that moment, she is the most powerful person you've ever seen. But power doesn't make her free. After the child comes slippery purple gasping, she doesn't smile. She just nods, wraps it. hands it to the mother who doesn't have the strength to hold it. Then the midwife washes. Silently. Always alone. You notice her fingers, chapped, split. One nail blackened, another gone. A burn mark curls over her wrist from when she dropped boiling water and caught the pot before it spilled on the baby. You ask her once, "Does it hurt?" She looks at her hands. No. Then she touches your shoulder. But they remember. One night, the birth is too late. The mother doesn't survive. You help wash her body, tear strips of linen, wrap her feet, her hands. The midwife doesn't cry, but after she leans over the child, swaddled, crying alone, and whispers something, you lean closer. Not a blessing, not a name, just "I'm sorry." You don't ask why. You already know. Because sometimes the ones who bring life carry more death than anyone else. And the hands that catch babies also carry every mother who didn't wake up. She was your friend, the kind who dared to laugh out loud, who whispered stories during chores, who said things like, "If I were a goddess, I'd make the Nile flow with honey." She was sunshine in a place built from dust. Then one morning, her mother didn't let her join you in the fields. "She's been chosen," she said. At first, you thought it was something wonderful. To serve the temple, to wear clean linen, to eat every day, to live near the gods. You brought her a reed bracelet you had woven the night before. She didn't smile. "They say I'm pure," she whispered. "I think they mean I haven't bled yet." That afternoon, 2 priests arrived. One carried a scroll, the other silence. They took her, not with force, but with formality. She didn't scream, didn't resist, just turned to you, took your hand, pressed something into it, a small bracelet, wooden beads, one missing. "Don't forget my voice," she said. Then she was gone. You tried to visit. The temple gates were closed. Only sacred personnel, they said. You tried to wait by the offering stall, hoping to catch a glimpse of her between prayers. Once you saw someone's shaved head, clean robe, distant gaze. You called her name. She didn't turn. They say girls who serve the god, men, are holy. They say they are untouched. But no one ever says what happens when the torches are out, when the door locks, when a girl forgets her own name so she can carry a god's. Years later, you pass the temple again. It's silent, the walls high, the air thick with incense and forgotten dreams. You still wear the bracelet, still hear her voice in your sleep sometimes, but mostly you wonder if she came back. Would she still know how to laugh, or did the temple take that too? It started after the 3rd child. A deep ache, not sharp, not sudden, just there, low in your back, like a whisper you can't shake off. At first, you ignored it. Women always do. But weeks pass, and every morning it takes longer to stand. Your spine stiff, like the wooden beam of a house that's held too many storms. You ask your mother if it's normal. She nods. After the 3rd, the body stops asking permission. You ask the healer. He doesn't look at your back, just your face, then says, "It's because you carry too much fire. Let it cool." He gives you herbs that taste of dust, tells you to sleep on the floor, and to stop complaining. You try, but every step becomes a negotiation. Every load of laundry, a battle. Every moment with your child on your hip, a sacrifice you never named. Some nights you lie flat on the clay floor, arms out, eyes open, and you wonder if this is how statues feel. Frozen, worshipped only in the sense that they're never really seen. You want to scream, but it's not the kind of pain that earns concern. It's invisible, domestic, expected. When your husband asks why dinner is late, you say nothing, because you know what he'll say. You've rested all day. You don't swing a hammer. And you'll want to reply, "No, I carry a household. I carry silence. I carry the weight of not being allowed to sit down." But you won't, because arguing takes energy, and that's another thing your bones can't afford. One day, you drop a basket, just a clay bowl inside. It breaks. You stand there staring at the shards, and for a moment, it's not the bowl that's broken. It's you. You kneel, gather the pieces, hold them in your lap like something sacred, because no one saw you fall, but the earth did, and you realize this pain in your back. It's not from lifting children, or kneading dough, or carrying water. It's from history, from inheritance, from 1,000 years of women bent over, never allowed to rise fully. Your spine hurts because it remembers what your mouth cannot say. She lived 2 houses down, quiet, thin, wore the same linen dress until the fabric gave up. No husband, no children, just a faint smile when you passed. And once she gave you a dried fig, split open like a soft secret. Then one morning you hear whispers, a miscarriage, blood in the bed, too much, too fast. She bled out before the sun touched the roof. You rush over, but the door's already closed, 2 men standing outside. Not priests, not mourners, just watchers. They say, she had no husband, she must have sinned. There will be no rites. They burn her body, not in the temple grounds but behind the storehouse, on dry wood, with no prayer, no flowers, no name. You watch from afar. The fire flares, then fades. The next morning, the ash is gone, swept, scattered, like kitchen dust, as if her life was a stain to be scrubbed out. You ask your mother, why didn't they keep some of her ashes? She says there was nothing to bless. That night, you walk to the river. You don't have anything of hers, not a comb, not a thread, but you carry a small handful of earth in your palm. You whisper her name, once, soft, then let the dirt fall into the water. The current takes it, slow, gentle, and you think if the gods didn't want her, maybe the Nile will. Because someone should remember, someone should say she was here. She laughed once, she mattered. Even if it's just the mud, the fish, the reeds. Even if it's just you. It wasn't grand, just a drawing, made from red clay dust, mixed with water and crushed petals, pressed onto the wall behind your sleeping mat. You worked on it at night, when the house was still, when the air softened enough for silence to feel kind. You didn't know how to draw properly, but your fingers remembered shapes your voice never dared form. A woman with open hands, a bird flying upward, a sun with more rays than it needed, because you liked the warmth it suggested. Each night, one more line, one more piece, a slow, quiet rebellion no one noticed, until they did. One morning you wake to find the wall washed, gone. Everything, smudged, scraped, replaced. In its place, 3 bold black symbols, your husband's name, and the sign for property of, no one says anything. You just stand there staring. You want to ask why, but before your lips move, your mother whispers, don't make it worse. You turn away. That night, you sit by the same wall. Your fingers twitch. They want to redraw, rewrite, reclaim. But you don't. You press your index finger into the air. Trace the old shapes, a hand, a bird, a sun. The story no longer lives on stone. It lives in your movement, in muscle, in memory. No one sees it, but that's the point. It cannot be erased again because now it never touches anything but your own breath. You keep drawing each night, each shape invisible, but real. Real enough that when you close your eyes, you see the wall still there with your woman, your bird, your sun, still flying, still glowing, still yours. She's 9. Tiny bony elbows, hair braided too tight. Eyes too quiet for her age. Her name is Nefer. It means beautiful. But no one ever calls her that, just the girl or the daughter of the widow. One afternoon, her mother brings her to your house. We're training her to be a good wife, she says. She's promised already. Promised. Not asked. You nod. You've heard it before. You lived it before. You teach her how to rinse rice, how to press dough without tearing it, how to hold a bowl without spilling when hands shake from nerves. She listens, never interrupts, never looks you in the eye unless you ask her to. At one point, the clay bowl slips. Not her fault the rim is cracked. She gasps, steps back, braces for the hit. You don't move. Just pick it up, place it down gently. She blinks, eyes wide, like mercy is a foreign language. Later, as the sun droops low, she sits beside you, legs crossed, chin on knees. She whispers, is it nice to be married? The question lands heavy, like dust on a damp floor, clinging unshakable. You want to say yes. You want to lie. Instead, you look at her, at the little scar above her eyebrow, at the fingernails chewed to the quick, and you say nothing. You reach for her hand, hold it, just long enough for her to notice the stillness. She leans into your arm, just a little, not for comfort, for something older, something like hope. That night, after she leaves, you sit by your mat, the same one you sat on at 9, and you remember no one warned you either. No one said you can say no. You deserve to grow before you serve. And suddenly, you understand, she was never given a childhood. She was given instructions, and silence, and a name that means beautiful in a life where beauty is a danger. You place your hand on the cool floor and promise, even if you can't save her, you will never forget what her eyes asked that day. It was late. The fire had gone out. The baby had fallen asleep, curled against the wall. Your body ached, not just from the day, but from years that didn't ask for your opinion. Your husband sat by the doorway, drinking. He finished his cup, stood up, and walked toward the mat. You didn't move. He crouched beside you, placed a hand on your hip. That's when something inside you shifted. Not rage, not panic, just enough. You whispered, barely above breath Kong. He paused, looked at you. Not surprised, just amused. A small, dry laugh, like you had mispronounced a word in a language you were never meant to speak. He didn't say anything, didn't hit you, didn't raise his voice. He stood, turned away. That was all. And yet, it was everything. Because in the morning, your food bowl was empty. No bread, no lentils. Not even the scrap ends you usually got. You waited. Nothing came. When you asked gently, he said you said no last night. You can feed yourself then. And that was the lesson. Not screamed, not carved, not written in any law, but clear as the Nile under moonlight. Your body is only yours when no one else wants it. Your voice only counts when no one is listening. And saying no costs more than staying silent. You sat that evening with your back to the wall, stomach hollow, head heavy. Your daughter watched you. Didn't ask. Just brought a bit of her own bread and placed it beside your foot. You didn't eat it, not yet, because your throat still held the Kong from the night before. Dry, burned, cracked. And you wondered, was that what power felt like? A single word spat into the dark, then swallowed by the world like it never existed. But you knew it existed, because it was still there, caught between your ribs. A reminder that even the smallest no is louder than a lifetime of yes, said in fear. It started as a crack, thin, barely visible, running down the mud brick wall near the hearth. At first, it annoyed you. Dust gathered there. Spiders found it cozy. The breeze whistled through it on cold nights. But then, one afternoon, after another fight, another silent meal, another stare that pressed more than it saw, you turned to that wall and whispered, "I hate him." The words barely left your lips, soft, ashamed, but real. The crack didn't move, didn't judge, and for the first time in a long time, you felt lighter. So the next day, when the child wouldn't stop crying when your back burned from kneeling too long, when your heart felt too loud for your chest, you spoke again. To the wall, "I can't do this forever." And still, nothing. Just silence. But not empty silence. A silence that accepted you, that held space, that didn't ask for obedience in return. Soon it became a habit. You told the wall things no one else knew. "I miss my mother. I dream of the river sometimes. Today I saw a yellow bird, and it felt like a sign." It never answered, but it never betrayed you either. Then one day your husband decided the kitchen needed repair. "The wall's crumbling," he said. "Can't have the house falling in." You watched as he chipped at the bricks, pried out the old mortar, and when he struck the cracked section, it broke off in one clean piece. Just like that. Gone. The space where your words had lived, where your secrets had settled, where your soft rebellion had bloomed. He patched it quickly. New mud, new shape. Smooth and cold and quiet, but in the wrong way. You stood there long after he left, staring at the spot. You whispered something. It didn't matter what, but this time it echoed back as nothing. That night, the house felt heavier, even with the wind blocked, even with the baby sleeping. Because you had lost the only thing that listened without asking, without judging, without needing you to be smaller. And you realized it wasn't the crack that was weak. It was you without a place to put your voice. They call it beautiful. The wedding dress, hand-dyed linen, thickly layered, decorated with blue beads, fringes that trail like roots across the floor. You are 15. You do not feel beautiful. You feel pressed. The dress is stiff. It scratches your arms. The neck is too tight. The hem drags like chains. Your aunt helps you wear it. She hums, says smile more. You're the star today. You try, but it's hard to smile when you can't breathe. Outside, the guests are already arriving, mostly men, laughing, eating, talking about the weather and your dowry in the same sentence. Inside, the air is thick with incense and heat. You sit still while women circle you, adjusting, pinning, tightening. No one asks, "Are you ready?" Only, "Have you eaten?" And when you say no, they laugh. A good bride should feel a little faint. It keeps her humble. You stand when told. You walk when told. You nod at your husband, 32 rough hands, eyes that scan you like a checklist. The ceremony is short. A document signed, a cup of beer passed. No vows, no poems, no words of love. Just ownership dressed in festive colors. Later in the corner of the sleeping room, you sit alone, still wearing the dress, too afraid to take it off. It's damp now, from sweat, from fear, from the weight of a dozen unspoken no's caught in your throat. You look down at the beads. They shimmer. Someone spent hours sewing them on. You wonder if that girl wanted to get married too, or if she simply did her task like you're doing now. The dress is heavy, not just in cloth, in meaning, in memory, in the certainty that from this day forward, your body is a home you no longer own. You lie down, still in the dress, still in silence, and you think this is not what dreams should feel like. This is what it feels like to disappear under layers someone else chose for you. No one said her name aloud. They called her the one who strayed, the daughter who questioned, the woman who spoke too much about the moon. She was old, not in years, but in the way wind smooths stone faster than time. No husband, no temple title, only stories whispered like warnings. She refused the priest's offer. She wrote her own prayers. She never bowed. Then, one day she died, alone. Her body was found curled near the riverbank, hands, folded, eyes open. They didn't hold a funeral, only a quick burial by the outer wall of the village. No procession, no chant. Someone said she should be buried facing away. So they placed her with her face to the mud brick wall, not toward the sun, not toward the gods, just inward, as if to punish her, even in death. You walked past the spot that night, saw no stone, no flower, just a small dip in the ground like a breath held too long. But the next morning you noticed something strange. A child, barefoot, small, placing something in the dirt. You came closer slowly. She didn't run, just looked up at you with quiet certainty. A lotus flower, pressed into the soil, stem bent. Not offered, just left. You said nothing, just nodded, because someone remembered. Someone didn't believe she deserved to disappear. And you too, for a moment, believed the same. Later, you knelt by the wall, touched the earth. It was cool, still. You whispered, "They turned your face to the wall, but I see you." And that was enough. Enough for the day. Enough for the dead. Enough for history to crack just a little. You sit by the river, same place as always. Toes in the dirt, fingers tracing circles in the dust. The Nile flows slowly today, not rushing, just continuing. Like it always has, like you always have. The sun is soft, your child sleeps beside you, face against your thigh. Her breath is shallow, safe. You watch a bird land near the reeds. It pecks once, twice, and flies again. No sound, no audience. But it flew anyway. That's what you think about lately. Not escape, not glory, just movement, quiet survival. The kind that doesn't make it into records, but still changes something. You've bled, you've buried, you've whispered to walls, you've seen joy punished and pain ignored, and still you are here, breathing, still feeling the wind on your neck, still tasting the memory of figs, still aching in your back, but less for yourself and more for the girls who haven't bled yet. You lean back, look up. The sky doesn't care. It never did. But today, that feels less cruel and more honest, because not being seen means you get to choose how to exist, even if, just for a moment, you place your palm on the dirt. Press hard. Leave an imprint. You know the wind will take it. The river will smooth it. The world will forget it. But not yet. Not now. Now it exists. Like you. And you whisper not to gods, not to statues, not to the silence, but to the dust. I'm still here. And the wind answers. Just barely. Just enough. You rarely dream anymore. Sleep is shallow, interrupted by babies, by cold air, by your own thoughts clattering in the dark. But last night was different. In the dream you were flying. Not like a bird, but like smoke. Soft, free. You passed above columns of stone. Your feet hovered above the Nile, never touching it. Your hair flowed behind you like a banner in the wind. There were no men, no laws, no gods watching. Just sky, just color, Just the sound of your own heartbeat, unafraid. When you woke, your chest ached, not with fear, with longing. You smiled. You hadn't smiled in sleep since before your first bleeding. You ran to tell your mother, told her about the dream, about flying, about brightness, about being unafraid. Her face changed, not soft, not pleased, frightened. She grabbed a clay jar, poured cold water on your head, rubbed your forehead with palm ash. "Don't speak of such dreams," she whispered. "Then Seth Nge Duak Day." You shivered, not from the water, but from the sudden silence that fell between your words and her fear. "But it was beautiful," you said. "No," she answered. "It was dangerous." That day she made you sit at the shrine, made you burn incense, made you chant verses to purify your mind. You didn't understand. What could be so sinful about joy? That night you tried to recall the dream, but the colors were dimmer, the flight slower, the sky further away. By morning it was gone, and that's when you realized in this life, some dreams are not stolen. They're surrendered, given up, for peace, for safety, for belonging. You never flew again, not even in sleep, because what lives in your mind is not allowed to be free. Not if it glows too brightly, not if it reminds you that you are more than dust and obedience. And so you learn to forget, to wake up and wash away the color before anyone else sees it, before they decide that even in your dreams, you've gone too far. You didn't know they were going to talk about you. It was just another temple day, the heat thick, the courtyard crowded, the priest standing tall before the altar, voice carrying like thunder. He started with a tale of a girl, of hardship, of divine testing. She had bled too young. She had given birth too early. She had lost a child. You froze. It was you, your story, your pain, but not your words. He called you blessed by trial, said your suffering was proof the gods had chosen to test her womb. He called your husband a man of patience, said the gods had gifted her a man to tame her silence. He got your father's name wrong, the year of your child's death wrong. He even claimed you had been healed by prayer, not by time. People around you nodded. Some cried. One woman whispered how strong she must be, but you sat still, face blank, inside shaking, because you realized something cold. You were no longer the owner of your life. He had taken it, cleaned it, carved it into a parable. And the worst part, everyone preferred his version. It was neater, more divine, less uncomfortable. After the sermon, a girl approached you, eyes wide. "Was that really you?" she asked. You looked at her innocence, at her eagerness to believe something beautiful. And you said nothing, because if you said yes, you'd be lying. If you said no, you'd be erased again. So you just nodded once, softly, and in that moment you felt your own voice dim like a lamp without oil, still warm, but no longer bright. Later that night, you whispered to yourself, "That wasn't me." Not the girl he described, not the ending he gave. But no one was there to hear it. And even if they had been, they would have remembered his voice more than yours. It was small. 2 ceramic earrings, shaped like lotus petals, painted with blue dye that had started to fade. He wasn't rich, just a boy from the next village, with hands always dusty from working clay, and eyes that didn't stare, just noticed. You had spoken a few times, at the river, at market, just passing words. But that day, he stopped beside your mat, opened his palm. There they were, the earrings, delicate, lopsided, handmade. "For you," he said. His voice soft, not demanding, not pretending. You didn't reach for them. You looked down. "I can't." He didn't argue, just placed them on the step, whispered, "You deserve to have something that's yours." Then left. You stared at them. And for a moment, one long golden moment, you felt something you couldn't name. Seen. Not for your cooking, your obedience, your body, but for simply being you. Then your mother walked by. Her eyes landed on the earrings. Without a word, she snatched them, walked to the riverbank, and threw them in. You watched the splash. "Kon kong duak ju vat gi machua duak koi koi," she said. Even being liked without permission is dangerous. That night, you couldn't sleep. You walked to the river quietly, knees in the mud, eyes scanning the edge. And there, half buried in silt, was one piece, a shard, still blue, still curved like a petal. You didn't take it home. You didn't tell anyone. You just held it, pressed it to your chest, then let it fall back. Not to keep, but to remember. Because you knew you'd be told to forget, to pretend it never happened, to believe it was shameful. But the shard stayed in your mind. A quiet proof. Someone once gave you something just because they wanted to. And you deserved it, even if you weren't allowed to keep it. There was a room, not far from the sanctuary, set behind a carved wooden door, always closed, but never locked. Inside were shelves, scrolls, ink, maps of stars, bones of animals laid out for study, words etched in languages older than the temple itself. You passed by it often, when sweeping, when refilling oil, when carrying water jugs to the priest's quarters. One day, the door was ajar, and just for a moment, just long enough, you saw the light. Golden, dust floating like slow-motion sparks, letters swimming on scrolls like tiny ink-colored fish. No one was watching. You stepped closer. One hand touched the doorframe. One breath curled toward the threshold. That's when you heard it. A voice behind you. Low, measured, final. Dokongpai noicho matkangai. You turned. It was an elder priest, not angry, just assured, as if stating gravity, not enforcing law. You nodded, backed away. That night, you couldn't sleep. Your mind kept walking through that door, touching papyrus, tracing constellations, whispering words you didn't yet know but somehow always felt were yours. You told no one, but the ache remained, not because you needed to learn, not because you thought yourself more, but because for the first time you realized knowledge wasn't forbidden because it was dangerous. It was forbidden because it gave you a voice. And voices like yours were meant to echo softly in kitchens, in cradles never in stone. The next day you walked past the room again. This time, the door was shut. You didn't slow your steps. But in your chest you carved a vow with no ceremony. One day, if no one else lets your daughter enter, you'll at least tell her what was kept inside. Even if you only saw it once. Even if you were never allowed back. Because memory, unlike doors, cannot be barred shut forever. It had no official name. Just a space behind the midwife's hut, beneath the fig tree that never bore fruit. Stone walls, a straw mat, one oil lamp that flickered even without wind. It wasn't for prayer. It wasn't for sleep. It was for waiting. And only women entered. You first went there with your sister. She was in her 7th month. The baby had stopped kicking for a day. She should rest, the midwife said. Wait, it will come. So you sat, on the mat, beside 3 other women, one young fingers trembling, one older, cradling a bundle of cloth that used to be her son's blanket, one silent, staring at the wall like it might speak back. No one talked. Not really. There were no stories, no gossip, only glances, red-rimmed, tired soft. Sometimes someone would hum. Not a song, just a note, low round, incomplete. Sometimes someone would whisper a name, then fall quiet. The door never closed, but it always felt closed. You waited there once yourself, when your bleeding wouldn't stop, when your body shook too long after childbirth, when your mother whispered, just go sit. Maybe it will pass. And you sat and waited, not for healing, not for rescue, just for time to move. But in that room, time thickened. It didn't tick, it pulsed, with pain, with breath, with the slow rhythm of women who knew no one was coming. You remember one girl, barely 10, sitting with her legs tucked under whispering numbers. 26, 27. When asked, she said she was counting the days until her wedding. But she'd lost count already, and you thought this isn't a room. It's a holding place, for those not allowed to speak but too visible to disappear. You left that room eventually, but part of you stayed, pressed into the mat, held in the lamp's flicker. Even now, years later, when someone says, Cho, you don't think of patience, you think of that room, and the women who sat there, waiting to become someone else, or to be allowed to remain themselves, or to be forgotten entirely. They called her Bakwe, the laughing woman. She lived alone, spun thread for the priests, knew how to treat bee stings and cradle colicky babies. But what made her special wasn't her hands. It was her voice. She told stories, every night by the well, old ones twisted into jokes, new ones made up on the spot. All of them funny, wildly, wickedly, wonderfully funny. You weren't supposed to laugh, not loudly, not with your shoulders shaking, not with your eyes watering, but she made you. Even the sternest wives giggled when she imitated the temple scribes. Even the silent girls smirked when she mimicked the priest's camel. She wasn't proper. She wasn't holy. She was alive. And that made people nervous. She laughs too much, someone whispered. She invites spirits, another said. But they still came. They still listened. Until one night, she started a story about a goose, a stolen sandal, and a very confused guard. She was halfway through the punchline when she doubled over. You thought she was acting. She had done it before to build suspense. But then she didn't get up. Her hands clutched her side. Her laughter turned into coughing. Then silence. She died like that, face in the dust, mouth open, mid-laugh, eyes wide with something that wasn't fear, maybe surprise. The next day, no one told stories. The priest said, "The gods have punished her. Women should not bring attention to their mouths." Your mother nodded, your neighbors nodded, and you stayed silent. But that night, you sat by the well, traced the shape of her footprints in the dust. You whispered the end of her story, the part she never finished, and then softly you smiled. Because if the gods took her for laughing, at least she died doing the one thing they couldn't silence. And you promised yourself you will remember her, not the way they warned you to, but the way she made you feel, light, wicked, briefly, free. She was 12, not quite a girl, not yet called a woman, not even Day just promised, to a man who smelled of oxen and onions, 3 times her age, twice widowed, once accused of beating a wife. You saw her the day they gave her the necklace. Ceramic beads strung too tight. She'll grow into it, someone said. She didn't smile, didn't cry, just nodded. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no trace. The family said nothing, not even her name. Neighbors whispered, of course. She drowned herself. She ran off with a slave. She was taken by a spirit. But no one searched, no one called out, as if losing her was less dangerous than admitting she had tried to leave. Days passed, then weeks, then a season, and then one morning you saw it by the river's edge, half buried in wet soil. A pair of sandals, small, worn, tied with a reed instead of proper cord. Your heart stopped, not because you feared the worst, but because you recognized them. She'd carved a swirl on one sole, said it was wind magic to make her run faster. You picked them up, wiped the mud, held them to your chest, and then slowly, quietly, you walked further downstream, found a patch of reeds, bent low, placed the sandals under a stone. Not a grave, not a shrine, just a remembering. Because if no one else would speak her name, you would remember her feet, the ones that dared move, the ones that said, "I would rather vanish than be owned." That night you lit a candle, not for mourning, not for closure, but for hope, because maybe she made it. Maybe she walks in another village, another life, with new shoes, and a name no one can take from her. And even if she didn't, she still ran, she still chose, and that choice was enough to make her unforgettable. The sun was low, the river quiet, the water moved like breath, soft, steady, not asking for anything. You sat alone, toes buried in warm sand, a quiet ache in your chest that had no shape, no name. You thought of her, your grandmother. She died before you bled for the first time, before you knew what it meant to be called woman and lose your name. No one spoke of her much, just that she was strong-willed, that she argued too often, that her death was timely. You never saw a shrine, never heard a prayer in her name. Once you asked, and someone said she was not the kind we remember. But you did. You remembered her hands, the way she tucked dried dates in her sleeve for you, the stories she mouthed silently when the room was loud with men. She was the first to say, "You can think things they don't allow you to say." And so that day by the river, you wrote her name in the sand. 3 letters, then 4 more, slowly, carefully, as if your fingers could etch memory into time itself. The waves rolled in, washed it away. You wrote it again, and again, and again. Because the world may erase. But while you still have hands, still have breath, you can remember. You don't need stone. You don't need temple records. You don't even need permission. You just need the will to say, "She lived. She mattered. She is not gone while I remember her." The sun dipped lower. Your daughter called from behind you. You turned, waved, smiled. And before walking away, you wrote the name one last time, pressed it deeper this time, hoped the river would wait a moment longer, not to preserve it, just to honor it. And as you stepped away, you whispered, not all names are meant for history. Some are meant for sand and love. You've probably heard the stories, that women in ancient Egypt were powerful, that they could own property, that they signed contracts, that some even became pharaohs. You might have heard that Egypt was ahead of its time, a rare oasis of equality in the ancient world. And in a way, it's true. Legally on papyrus, women had rights. They could inherit land, they could initiate divorce, they could appear in court. Some did, but most didn't. Because law is only one piece of power. Culture is louder, custom is heavier. Silence is harder to document. The truth is, the woman in your textbooks, the one painted in gold leaf standing proudly beside God's, she was the exception, not the rule. For every Cleopatra, there were thousands of girls married at 12. For every Hatshepsut, there were millions who never had their name carved on stone. Power was possible, but rare and often costly. Even Cleopatra, icon of power, seduction, brilliance, died by suicide, her legacy entangled in Roman propaganda, her children erased. She didn't triumph. She survived, until she couldn't anymore. So when someone says women in ancient Egypt had it better, remember who got to write that sentence. Who had the ink, the wall, the voice? Because for every woman who ruled a kingdom, 1,000 others ruled nothing, not even the right to say no. You've seen the murals. Women in long gowns holding lotus flowers standing behind gods, beside husbands, below kings. Their skin golden, their expressions calm, their hands always poised. It looks beautiful, balanced, almost sacred. But look again. They never speak. Their names are rarely written. They are there, but just behind, always behind. Art in ancient Egypt was not portraiture. It was instruction. It showed how things should be, not how they were. A woman's stillness meant devotion. Her silence meant virtue. Her lowered eyes meant respect. But what if her silence wasn't a choice? What if her stillness was exhaustion? What if her eyes were lowered because she didn't want to be seen? The temple walls say she was graceful. They don't mention the bruises, the miscarriages, the hunger. They paint her carrying baskets of grain, but not the child she buried last spring. They show her dancing before Hathor, but not the nights she whispered prayers through clenched teeth and cracked lips. Symbolism is powerful. It turns survival into elegance. It makes suffering seem sacred. And it makes the rest of us forget to ask, did she ever get to move on her own? Did she ever get to speak for herself? Because a symbol can be admired, but a woman, a real one, must be heard. If your belly hurt, they said it was the spirit of a dead child clinging to your womb. If your bleeding wouldn't stop, they blamed a jealous goddess. If you couldn't conceive, they burned crocodile dung and made you breathe the smoke. In ancient Egypt, healing was sacred, but not always kind. The body of a woman wasn't studied. It was interpreted, like a dream, like a sign. They didn't ask where it hurt. They asked when you last angered the gods. Cures came in the form of a live snake under the bed to frighten the infertility away. Bread soaked in dates inserted overnight to test the sweetness of your womb. Ash from an old woman's bones mixed with honey to banish wandering spirits. Sometimes it worked, by chance, by placebo, by belief. But often it didn't. And when it didn't, they didn't question the remedy. They questioned you. You must not have followed instructions. You must have sinned. You must not have wanted it enough. And so you endured pain without explanation, without comfort, without doubt, because doubt was more dangerous than bleeding. The line between medicine and magic was thin, and for women, it was often crossed without warning. So you smiled when the priest gave you a charm. You thanked him when the healer poked your belly with thorns. You nodded when they told you to lie with your head pointed west so your womb would find the setting sun. Because to question any of it was to question your place. And pain, if endured quietly, was considered proof you were meant to be a woman. No one chained your wrists. No one locked your ankles. No one needed to. They gave you something stronger, belief. From the moment you could speak, you were told what a good woman did. She walked behind. She looked down. She bled in silence. She birthed without question. She died without disruption. These weren't laws. They were truths, taught by your mother, echoed by your grandmother, reinforced by the temple, and whispered by women to each other like lullabies. Not out of cruelty, but survival. Because to question them even once was to risk exile, not from land, but from love, from community, from the only safety you were allowed. So systems didn't need guards. They had priests, midwives, fathers, husbands, and even you, your own tongue, policed your thoughts. When you ached, you prayed. When you wanted more, you called it a temptation. When you felt rage, you swallowed it and said it was your duty. That's how control survives. Not through force, but through repetition, through generations, through songs sung during chores, through warnings carved in bedtime stories, through proverbs about obedience being sacred. And one day, you found yourself teaching it too. Telling your daughter, don't speak so loud, don't eat before your brother, don't question the gods, and somewhere deep inside, a part of you wept, because you weren't passing on wisdom. You were passing on a wound, wrapped in ritual, disguised as love, echoed until even silence had a script. You live in another world now. There are no priests checking your clothes, no midwives burning crocodile dung, no temples to Isis where you must keep your voice low. But look closer. Do women still say sorry before they speak? Do girls still learn to smile when uncomfortable? Do mothers still tell daughters to sit pretty, not too loud, not too much when your period came? Did anyone celebrate? Or was it still met with whispered warnings and pads passed under tables? When you dreamed big, did someone laugh? Did someone say, that's not very ladylike? History doesn't repeat. It reshapes. The bua may be gone, but the pressure remains. Now it comes in different forms. Ads that show beauty before brains. Textbooks that mention kings, but not the women who fed them. Workplaces where you must speak twice as clearly to be half as heard. And sometimes the silence isn't forced. It's chosen. Because you're tired. Because you don't want to be difficult. Because no one ever taught you how to raise your voice, only how to lower it. So ask yourself, has the world truly changed? Or has it just become better at hiding the old rules? When someone says, we've come so far, you nod. Yes. But sometimes you still feel 12 again, sitting beside a dry riverbed, trying to write your grandmother's name in the sand before the tide erases it. If you had lived in ancient Egypt, really lived not as a queen, not as a priestess, but as a girl in a mud brick home by the river, would you have spoken? Would you have dared ask why boys ate first, why you bled in secret, why your prayers were always to male gods? Would you have tried to run, to write, to sing? Would you have kept a journal beneath your mat, whispered your real thoughts to a cracked wall, or carved your name in the corner of a temple step? Or would you have done what most did survive? Fold yourself small, smile when needed, obey without fully understanding why. And could you blame yourself? You would have loved, feared, birthed, buried. You would have carried grief so heavy it warped your spine. Joy so brief it felt like a crime, and maybe, just maybe, you would have whispered to your daughter, don't believe them when they say this is all you are. Even if no one ever told you different. Even if you never got to leave. Because rebellion doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like a quiet thought that refuses to go away. A name remembered, a story passed down, a lullaby altered by a single word. And now here you are, in a different time, with a different life. But the question is the same. Would you have stayed silent, or would you have dared to remember she was born on a hot morning? No one wrote it down, just remembered her by the amulet tied around her ankle. She cried often as a child. They told her to hush, girls should not call attention. She was married at 13, to a man who didn't ask her name. Only if she could bear children, she did. 3. One survived. She learned to kneel, to stir, to wait. When she laughed too loud, she was slapped. When she sang too long, she was shushed. When she asked why she bled, they said it's the goddess's curse. She lit lamps, said prayers, buried her mother with a borrowed blanket. And when she died, there was no procession, no story, no monument, just a stone at the edge of a dry field, etched with 4 words, Tiavokua Pa Amenhotep, Tai wife of Pa Amenhotep. No mention of her thoughts, No hint of her griefs, no record of the nights she whispered to the wall and hoped anyone would answer. Her whole life was reduced to a possession. A side note, she had a name, but no voice. And yet, you just heard her. You heard the weight she carried, the breath she held, the words she never said out loud. You carried her story. For a few minutes, for one night. And now she is not forgotten. Not the house, not the bed, not the air she breathed. Every object around her had someone else's name on it. The cooking pot, her husband's. The roof, her father-in-law's. The child, the God's. She didn't sign anything, didn't own land, didn't inherit jewelry. She passed things down, but nothing up. When she died, no one asked what she wanted. Her body was wrapped in linen, the cheap kind, stained from reuse. She was buried in a corner of the village cemetery. No priest, just a boy with a drum. Years later, when new land was needed, her grave was quietly opened. Bones moved. Names scraped off the stone. No permission needed, no notice given. She was never herself in life, and never hers in death. They called her our mother, our sister, our ancestor, but never just Ty. Her story, her body, her voice, all borrowed, all erased when no longer convenient. And yet, for one moment, when you read her name, when you whispered it back into the world, she belonged to herself. Even just for a breath, even just in your mind, because to remember her is to return something. Not a home, not a possession, but a fragment of dignity. And in that quiet act, you undo a little of the forgetting. Let's pretend. You wake up in her body. It's your first blood. No one explains. You're handed cloth and told to stay away from food. From men, from the gods, you're told this is holy. But no one smiles. A month later, you're betrothed. You haven't kissed, you haven't chosen. You don't even know what his voice sounds like when he's not yelling. On your wedding night, you lie on a mat that smells of animal skin and dust. He enters like a storm, no warning, no question. You stare at the ceiling, count the cracks, and no one will ask how it felt. Not your mother, not the midwife, not even the gods you've been praying to. You get pregnant. You're scared. You bleed too early. And when the baby doesn't move, they say it's because you let bad thoughts into your body. You're told to be silent at the burial, to smile so the spirit won't get lost. You come home, cook dinner, wash sheets, press your hand to your belly, and wonder if it remembers. Would you have survived? Not the hunger, not the heat, not the pain, but the silence. Would you have survived knowing everything you were could be erased simply because no one wrote it down? Maybe you would have. Most women did. But surviving isn't the same as living. And maybe you would have asked just once, is this all I'm allowed to be? You're not in ancient Egypt. You have shoes with rubber soles, a phone that lights up, a room you call your own. But still, you apologize when you speak too much. You hesitate before saying no. You wonder if you're too loud, too opinionated, too emotional. You shrink in meetings. You change your shirt when it shows too much collarbone. You delete the message before you send it, just in case it makes things awkward. No one gave you a linen bois, but you were told that nice girls don't make scenes. No one burned your name off a wall, but someone said your success was luck, or timing, or too aggressive. You don't kneel to offer grain, but you still serve, still carry, still clean up even when no one says thank you. You walk freely, but sometimes you still feel watched. You have a voice, but sometimes you lower it, just in case. And every now and then when you catch yourself biting your tongue, or dimming your light, or explaining something twice, you wonder, how much of her is still inside me? How much of that old silence have I inherited, like a scar invisible but aching? You carry so much, but you are not alone in that weight. Tonight you heard her. And maybe, just maybe she hears you too. You're not in that mud brick home. You're not grinding barley in the dark, or bleeding without a word, or waiting for a name that was never yours to keep. You're here, in your bed, with a pillow shaped by your choosing. A ceiling that doesn't leak, walls that don't whisper back. You can breathe without being punished. You can move without being told where. You can speak and not wait for permission. The past is heavy, yes, but it is not wrapped around you anymore. It is not your mattress, not your silence, not your skin. It is a shadow, outside the room, observed, acknowledged, but not allowed to follow you in. So inhale, Deep, deeper than a woman ever could inside that temple, with incense clouding the air and fear pressing down like heat. And exhale, long, slow, full of the dust she never got to shake from her lungs. Let it go. Because you're not there now. You're here. You're safe. And the voice you carry, it's not just yours anymore. Close your eyes. Let the linen sheets touch your skin. Not rough like hers, but soft, clean, your choice. Let the hum of your fan replace the buzz of flies around a clay stove. Let the mattress beneath you hold you not scratchy straw, but something kind, something made for rest. She never had this, not a door she could lock, not a night without duty, not a moment to drift without fear. But you do. You get to sleep without a prayer for safety. You get to dream without being punished. You get to feel warmth and know it won't be taken. And as you begin to drift, just remember, she is not asking you to carry her pain. Only her name. Just once. Whisper it if you want. Tie, Neferu, Setka. Or one you made for her, because they never gave her one. Breathe. Let your chest rise like the Nile in flood season, full, steady, alive. And as the silence deepens, know this. She saw you. Somewhere in the dust of time, she knew someone would hear her one day. And tonight, that someone was you. So sleep now. Not to forget, but to rest, to heal, to carry her memory without weight. Sleep, and remember her.